Hello there, welcome to the Football Block. My name is Brandon. Today we are going to have another episode of News Bits. We're going to look back at the weekend and recap everything that has happened in Europe's top 5 leagues. We had some pretty high-profile games here, some really good matches, some really exciting matches as well to look back on. So, as always, let's start off in England in the Premier League. And on Saturday, we had Sheffield United going up against Manchester United. And this was a game that was very important for reasons outside of the football pitch. Unfortunately, Sir Bobby Charlton has passed away, one of the legends of the English game, one of the legends of Manchester United, one of the greatest players of all time. So there was an outpouring of respect, tributes all across the footballing world for Sir Bobby Charlton here. And in great fashion here, Manchester United did come away with the win. However, it was not easy, and in fact, you can argue that Sheffield United was the better team for most of the game, even though they're coming into this bottom of the Premier League. They had yet to win a single game in the league so far this year. Scott McTominay from Manchester United actually opened the score. He's been having a really good season so far. He is one of the few, if not the only player, besides possibly Højlund, who's been having a good season for Manchester United so far. By comparison, because of course Casemiro is always going to be good, but you know it's not as good as his days at Real Madrid, for example. But still, McTominay scored, but Sheffield was able to equalize in the first half, and the game was back and forth, and if anything, like I said before, Sheffield was a better team, but I think at the end of the day, Manchester United obviously have a much more talented team, and that showed when Diogo Dalot scored the winner. Very nice strike from him and late in the second half to win it 2-1 for Manchester United. We also had the Merseyside derby. It was hosted by Liverpool in Anfield, and this is a game that historically, of course, has a lot of connotation to it. It's a great rivalry, but nowadays, and especially now with Liverpool being the massive team that they are, there rarely is a contest in this rivalry here, and this game was no different. Ashley Young was sent off in the first half for a double yellow, rash challenge there, but you know, even if Ashley Young had not been sent off, it is hard to see a scenario where Everton come away with some type of result here. It was complete domination from Liverpool. However, you know, it was a little tough. They weren't able to score until the second half, but Mohamed Salah scored 2 goals here. He's having a pretty good season so far. I think that he's kind of the enemy, or he's his own expectations is his biggest enemy, because he's expected to put up crazy numbers every season so far, that even though he's doing great this season, he's not being talked about as much as other players are. So he continues his great form. Liverpool march on with yet another victory there, although a rather expected victory, of course. Newcastle United continue their great form. They blew away Crystal Palace 4-0. And then we also had Manchester City going up against Brighton in a very interesting game, because as the game started out, it was complete domination from Man City. Julian Alvarez, another player who is having an absolutely amazing season, despite playing in the same team with Erling Haaland and often playing aside Erling Haaland. He scored, and then Haaland, speaking of the same player, he also scored not too long after that to double the score for Manchester City. But as we saw many times throughout last season, once City go ahead, they don't get their foot off the gas. They continue going full speed, and they utterly obliterate teams. That did not happen here, and in fact, in the second half, the Cherby, the manager of Brighton, made some really crucial changes, and if anything, you can argue that Brighton were the better team in the second half. Ansu Fati came off the bench and scored his first goal for Brighton. It's really good to see that he is up and running in his goal-scoring form. It wasn't, the most amazing goal. It was a tap-in, but still, a goal's a goal. And Matoma had a one-on-one chance that Ortega, in goal for Man City, had a really good save, required a really good save. And it wasn't complete domination from Brighton, but still, City look to be a little shaky at the back, and they're not as ruthless as they are last year. Now, of course, there are some injuries. Kevin De Bruyne, the most notable of that, and they let go a lot of players, Riyad Mahrez and Gundogan, for example. So it'll be interesting to see how this team goes on throughout the season. Maybe in January they need to, splash the cash again. Possibly the biggest highlight out of any of Europe's top 5 leagues this weekend was Chelsea versus Arsenal. The last game there on Saturday. Very, very high-profile game and a very, very fun game to watch. It ended up being a 2-2 scoreline, but Chelsea, the home team, actually was the better team for about the first 60 minutes here. They have been in growingly good form. Each game they get better and better, and this game here continues that trend. Cole Palmer scored with a penalty to open the score for Chelsea, and Chelsea was just, they look to be finally clicking into form. Pochettino, who I've been critical of, credit to him, he has been playing well. He's been getting this team to play well. Mudryk scored as well. Granted, it was a very lucky goal. It was still a very nice goal to see. It was one of those, misfired crosses that ends up in the back of the net. He's a player that has been criticized heavily, and, rightfully so, as he was worth a lot of money. He didn't really do much last year. But so far, he has been playing pretty well this season, as well as in this game. But I think Arsenal overall is a much better team, whether that be in there's the team mentality, the current form of their players, as well as just the experience that they have. Arsenal is a better team, and that really showed towards the end of the second half. Declan Rice scored, although it was another lucky goal, this time through a mistake from the goalkeeper for Chelsea, Robert Sanchez, who is a player that I don't really rate highly, if I'm being perfectly honest. I don't think he is that great of a goalkeeper. I think Chelsea is really missing both Kepa and Mendy, despite Mendy not having that great of a season last year, and despite Kepa having his own issues. But still, I think both of them are better than Robert Sanchez. That being said, on the other end of the pitch, David Raya for Arsenal also looked very, very shaky. I don't think that any of his mistakes ended up being that serious, but still, it's a little shaky there, both of the goalkeeper situations there. Now, of course, Ramsdale had to miss this game because his wife gave birth. Congratulations to him, of course. But Ramsdale, besides this game, has been benched for Raya, which is an interesting choice from Arteta. The one choice that it baffles a lot of people, because Arteta has been a good manager, of course, over the past 2 years and beyond as well. But anyway, back to the story of the match. It was 2-1 after Declan Rice pounced on that error from Raya, or from Sanchez, excuse me. And then from that point on, Chelsea just looked like they kind of were too tired, they were too fatigued, and Arsenal was able to capitalize on that. Trossard scored a very nice goal only a few minutes later to tie it 2-2. And I think 2-2 is a fair result because Chelsea played really well throughout the first hour, but then Arsenal responded very, very strongly as well. So I think 2-2 is overall a fair result there. It looks like Chelsea's finally clicking into form. Everything is looking good for them. Meanwhile, Arsenal prove that they are a serious team and they have a strong mentality. Now, the last game we're going to talk about in the Premier League was on Monday, and Tottenham beat Fulham. Now, this game was interesting because with this victory, Tottenham is now top of the table. And they're not just top of the table, they have a 2-point gap, and they are the only undefeated team left in the Premier League. And of course, by looking at this, I'm sure everyone's first reaction is, all right, it's only a matter of time before Tottenham, reality kind of sets and they'll fall down the table, because they're obviously not winning the league here. They just lost Harry Kane. They have a new manager coming in, but you have to give credit where credit is due. Now, I personally don't think that Tottenham is going to win the title, but you never know. They're breaking records. They're playing well. The whole team is playing well. Even, for example, look at Richarlison. He hasn't been scoring as many goals as he should, but his contribution to the team has now extended beyond just goals. Like, for example, the first goal that Tottenham scored today, a typical finish from Heung-Sung Min, one of his classic type goals where he dropped the shoulder, curl it into the bottom corner. It was assisted by Richarlison, and also Richarlison was all over the pitch doing great hold-up play. Overall, Tottenham looked to be a very good team, a very formidable team this year. Like I said before, I don't think that they'll end up winning the league. I think the talent that Man City have and that strong team mentality that Arsenal have will ultimately push both of those teams over the edge. But Tottenham looked to be going in the right direction after several years of just spiraling out of control. So anyway, now let's move on to Spain in La Liga, and we also had some really good matchups here. On Saturday, we had Celta Vigo against Atletico Madrid. Now, Celta Vigo actually started off the better team. I thought they were playing really well. This is the team under Rafa Benitez, but they have not been playing as good as they should be with a squad that isn't the most talented squad in the world, but still has some quality throughout it. And of course, they have Rafa Benitez, one of the greatest managers of his generation. But things had not really been clicking. And unfortunately here, even though they started off well, they did kind of get slightly unlucky here. There was a red card early on to VR. Very clear red card in my opinion. And then from that moment on, that completely just ruined the game plan for Celta Vigo. Atletico Madrid drew a penalty, Antoine Griezmann scored, and then it was still a little back and forth. I think that Celta Vigo had some really close chances to tie it up, and then even into the second half, they hit the crossbar as well. But once they started to get tired, and then once Atletico Madrid started to really just get comfortable, it was all Atletico from that point on. Griezmann scored a second goal. Now, this one was a little lucky. He went to cross the ball. He slipped, and he sent the ball on target, but because it was looking like he was obviously going to cross it, the goalkeeper dove to his left, and then the ball kind of trickled into the net. Lucky goal there, but still a goal is a goal. And then Griezmann completed his hat trick, actually. He scored a very good finish after very, very nice build-up play, nice assist from Molina, good hold-up play from Morata as well. And even though Atletico Madrid characteristically haven't been defending, or uncharacteristically haven't been defending as well, they look to be extremely well coordinated in transition and in the counterattacks, particularly Griezmann and Alvaro Morata, who is a player that has been criticized a lot, but I think he's been having a really good season. And of course, Griezmann is Griezmann. This is this new rejuvenated Griezmann. He's no longer just the typical striker that he is. He's now sort of a number 10, maybe even a number 8 at times. So he's been playing great. He, of course, with a hat trick here, he now has 8 goals this season, I believe, and he continues up that really good form. Elsewhere, Real Sociedad continued their really good start to this season with a 1-0 win over Mallorca. It was a little close there. Real Betis tied 1-1 with Getafe. They were not able to get the 3 points, and this has so far been a very up and down season for Real Betis. They've had some good results, but then they've also had some very, very poor results, and leaving them 9th in the table. Now, the next game we're going to talk about here, in my opinion, was the best game out of all Europe's top 5 leagues this weekend, and that was Sevilla versus Real Madrid. It was hosted in Seville. Real Madrid came to meet a familiar face, Sergio Ramos, who was now a Sevilla player. And this game was extremely fun. It had everything. It had fights on the field. It had crazy goals. It had nice goals. It had controversies, everything that you wanted from a game like this. The game started out in the first 10 minutes looking like all Real Madrid. They actually scored a goal that was, in my opinion, probably incorrectly ruled out. It was ruled out for being offside. It was a big mix-up in the box, and it was ruled that Bellingham was offside, but it was so close that I mean, it's one of those where you need to bring out a ruler and then show that he's centimeters offside. In my opinion, this might be a hot take. If you can't see it from the naked eye that he's offside, then you just have to give the benefit to the doubt to the attacking player. But regardless, the goal that was scored, it actually was a mix-up in the box, like I said, and then it came off. Valverde took a shot from a really tight angle. It came off of Ramos. There is a possibility that it would have been credited as an own goal for Ramos. Now imagine that he scores own goals against both Barcelona and Real Madrid, but luckily for Ramos' sake, that did not happen. There was another goal that Real Madrid scored, this time from Bellingham, but it was called back in controversial manner. There was a mix-up in the box. Ocampos got taken out, and he looked to be in pain, and the referee stopped the match. He blew the whistle. He stopped play. But what is controversial is that it wasn't a head injury, so technically you can argue he should not have stopped the game. But regardless, the Real Madrid players and some of the Sevilla players didn't hear him blow the whistle, so some of them continued on. Bellingham scored and then celebrated, but then the goal was called back. Interestingly enough, from that moment on, though, Sevilla picked themselves up, and remember, this is Sevilla. They just sacked Mendilibar. They have Diego Alonso coming into the team, and it was very, very end-to-end. Sevilla had some really close chances. Syria was playing good. Rakitic rolled back the years and was playing really well. And then Real Madrid had some chances as well, but they looked a little disjointed up front. Vinicius was looking frustrated. He got completely shut down, in my opinion, by Jesus Navas. 37-year-old Jesus Navas, the short guy playing right back, the legend of the game, Sevilla legend, Spanish legend, La Liga legend, of course. Rodrigo was looking frustrated as well. I think Bellingham had a good game, but Bellingham is just, he looked like he was trying to do everything there. Second half started more of the same from that, but I think this shows two things. One, this Sevilla team, it just shouldn't work. You know, you look at this team, they've had, I think, 3 or 4 managers in just this calendar year of 2023. They have players like Jesus Navas, who I just mentioned, who's 37 years old, yet he's playing out of his mind. You have a guy like Youssef En-Nesyri, such a gangly and unorthodox player, yet he consistently pops up with goals. You have Rakitic, who's also very old. You have Fernando, and then all these other guys that are old. Then you have these bit part players here and there, like Eric Lamela, who I don't want to say flopped, but wasn't really fulfill his potential at other clubs. He shows up in the right moment. Same with Suso. They just sold Bono, and yet the team works. They won the Europa League. Yes, they've been up and down, but still, they come up with a great performance here against Real Madrid. It's just, it's uncanny almost of how this team just somehow fits together, and that's kind of the story of Sevilla. As for Real Madrid, I think, and we've seen this multiple times throughout the season, but this game was very evident that they need a number 9. They need a striker. Vinicius, as world-class of a talent he is not a striker. He likes to naturally drift out to the left. Rodrigo, same thing, but on the other side of the pitch. And then Bellingham, again, as amazing as a player as he is, you can make a very strong argument that he's the best midfielder in the world right now. He is just that. He's a midfielder. He's not a striker. And when you're playing against mid-table to lower-tier teams in Liga, you can get away with that. But when you're playing against a team as talented and as experienced as Sevilla, it's going to be a different story. And we saw what happened when you play one of the best teams in the world right now, Atletico Madrid. They completely wiped the floor with Real Madrid there. So I think Real Madrid have some serious problems, and I am very surprised that they did not buy a striker in the transfer window. But of course, it's kind of expected now that Mbappe will be coming. So in next summer at least. But anyway, back to the story of the match. David Alaba scored an own goal. It was a kind of a strange own goal. Own goal came off his hip and then it bounced off of Kepa's face and then into the goal. And then immediately after that, though, Real Madrid was able to equalize from a goal from Dani Carvajal, the short right back. just like Jesus Navas, a short guy who's playing right back, he came up with a header off a free kick. He actually outjumped Youssef En-Nesyri, the very tall striker who was known for his capability in the air. Very surprising there, but a great header from Carvajal. And even though Real Madrid got back into the game, if anyone was going to score, it looked like it was going to be Sevilla. But I think overall 1-1 is a fair result. And like I said before, this was, in my opinion, my favorite game that we saw this weekend. And it was very end-to-end, very exciting. There was some controversy there at the end. Sergio Ramos did what Sergio Ramos does best. He riled up the players. Him and Rudiger got into a spat. You can argue Ramos probably should have gotten a card because he put both his hands to Rudiger's face. I don't know if you saw the pictures of it. It looked really funny. Rudiger was yelling at him, and then he put his fingers in Rudiger's mouth almost and forced him to make a smile. Very strange, but very funny. Anyway, on to the next day. Girona, who has been the surprise of the season so far in Spain, had a really amazing match here where they actually went 2 goals down to Almeria. Leo Baptistao, the Brazilian striker who's played for Espanyol and several other teams in Spain, he scored a brace within the first 24 minutes to put his team up 2-0. And then out of nowhere, Girona came back with a 5-goal comeback. They ended up winning 5-2 there, utterly smashed Almeria after that brief period of good play from them. And they proved that they are, of course, they're not going to win the league. They're proving to be one of the better teams in Spain this year, completely out of nowhere, as it seems. Villarreal was not able to get the 3 points there in their 1-1 draw with Deportivo Alaves. And then in one of the more high-profile matches, we had Barcelona going up against Athletic, Barcelona hosting Athletic up there, welcoming back Ernesto Valverde, their former manager. And this was a game that, was interesting because Barcelona has been plagued by injuries. Obviously, Lewandowski, Frankie de Jong, now Jules Koundé, Pedri as well. All injured, so Barcelona had to call up a lot of young players, and I think that showed in many ways because Barcelona was a better team. Barcelona, I think, defended well. The midfield didn't do enough to handle the Williams brothers, in my opinion. Both Iñaki and Williams were, Iñaki and Nico Williams were very good in this match. However, they were pretty much the only threat going forward for Athletic Bilbao. Other than that, it was all Barcelona. But they just didn't look clinical enough. It looked like they were the more likely team to score, but it didn't really look like they were going to score, which unfortunately has kind of been the story of the season for Barcelona. In not all their matches, but in many matches here. But a moment of brilliance happened late into the second half, less than 10 minutes left. Marc Guiu comes off the bench. La Masia product. He's a youngster there. This is one of his first games for Barcelona. And with his second touch, he scores the winner. Ball gets played out of the back from Inigo Martinez, and then a really good run and a really good pass from João Felix, who I think had a wonderful game overall. Plays in Marc Guiu, and then he sneaks it past Unai Simon in Athletic Bilbao's goal to grab the 1-0 lead for Barcelona, a lead that they would hold on to the end. Very important win for Barcelona considering that Real Madrid dropped points, and also considering that Atletico Madrid won and they also have a game in hand. But of course, all of the headlights will be on Marc Guiu. What a performance from him and what a moment from him. As you look at the table, Real Madrid is still top right now, but they are tied with Girona. They have a better goal difference than Girona. Also, they have the head-to-head victory. But Barcelona is very close. They're only 1 point behind. And Atletico Madrid is on 22 points. They are 2 points behind Barcelona, 3 points behind Real Madrid and Girona. However, like I said before, they do have a game in hand there. And if they are to win that, they would be tied for first, and they also currently have a better goal difference than those two teams at the top, and they have the head-to-head advantage over Real Madrid. So anyway, let's move on to Italy. Let's go to Serie A. And Napoli went back to their goal-scoring ways. They went back to their winning ways, as did Kvaratskhelia, or as I like to just call him, Kvara, because it's very hard to pronounce his full name. He was on the score sheet again twice this time, as Napoli beat Hellas Verona 3-1. Overall, really good performance from Napoli, and it is really good to see them back in form after they've had some hiccups so far, which is, in hindsight, expected after that gargantuan season that they had last year, of course. Lazio was also able to beat Sassuolo 2-0, goals from Anderson and Alberto. Lazio continues their pretty good start to the season. And then Inter Milan, who in my opinion has been the best team in Serie A this year, proves that my point even further after blowing away Torino away from home 3-0. Thuram, who has been a wonderful signing for Inter Milan, scores again. And then Lautaro Martinez broke a record by scoring here again. He is one of the few, I think he's one of only 3 Inter players to have double digits in goal by this match day, or by this point of the season so far. And then Çalhanoğlu scored to make it 3-0 in injury time. But Lautaro Martinez in particular, I talked about him before, but he has 11 goals so far in Serie A. He is, you can make an argument, one of, if not the most informed striker in the world right now. And I think he is slightly underrated. Of course, people talk about him, but he's not getting the same plaudits that other strikers are, and I think that he deserves his seat in that discussion there for being the best striker in the world right now. On to the next day, Roma beat Monza 1-0. It was a close game overall, but this is very important for Roma here because it is not been the best season in Serie A so far. It's been very up and down. Stefan Al-Shaarawy actually rolled back the years and scored in the 91st minute there to win for Roma. Also in Serie A, we had one of the most high-profile matches in all of Europe this weekend. We had AC Milan hosting Juventus, and this was a very interesting game because besides the Milan derby, I think that Milan has been the second best team in Italy and one of the best teams in Europe. Meanwhile, Juventus has kind of just been trudging along. They've had some poor results and they've had some good results, but they've been doing, just enough to be where they should be, I would say. So it was hard to see who would come out on top in this match, considering that both teams have had particular players who are in really good form. And this match, it started off, I think, in Milan's favor. I think they were the better team. They were making tons of chances. Giroud had a really close chance, a really good acrobatic finish for him that was just saved by the goalkeeper. Szczesny was forced into a few other really good saves. Rafa Leao was, off and running like he normally is. Pulisic was having a really good match as well, but everything changed when Thial, who I hope I'm pronouncing that last name right, got red carded for a very clear red card challenge there. He grabbed Moise Kean and pulled him down to the ground. He was the last guy back, and it was already a brutal enough challenge. Straight red, no complaints there because everyone could just plainly see it was a sending off, a challenge that was very worthy of a sending off. And then from that moment on, it completely flipped. I think Juventus were the more proactive team. They were going forward. It looked like Milan was just trying to sit out and wait for a draw. And Juventus started really knocking on the door. Locatelli actually scored the only goal in this game. He got a bit lucky. He took a long shot and it took a deflection off of Krunic and then went into the goal. That's not to say that Juventus were lucky because if it wasn't for Milan's goalkeeper Mike Mignon, Vlahovic would have had 1 or 2 goals there. And like I said before, Juventus were blowing away Milan in terms of who was playing better, who was going forward more. Fun fact about the Locatelli goal. So Locatelli used to play for Milan before he went to Sassuolo and then before he went to Juventus. And back in 2017, when Milan was playing Juventus, Milan actually won 1-0 when the youngster Locatelli was the one that scored a very nice goal there. So it's funny how history kind of repeats itself. But anyway, the match finished 1-0 to Juventus. I think it's a harsh game for Milan considering how good they were playing until the red card. But at the end of the day, for majority of the match, Juventus was a better team and I think deservedly win there. So let's move on to Germany in the Bundesliga. There were some high-profile matches here. Dortmund was able to beat Werder Bremen 1-0. Nice goal from Julian Brandt, and they continue to try and piece together their season, which has been very, very up and down thus far. Then Leipzig was able to come away with a 3-1 win over Darmstadt. Eintracht Frankfurt was able to bounce back after some disappointing results as well with another 3-1 win, this time over Hoffenheim. And then Bayer Leverkusen beat Wolfsburg 2-1. Very impressive performance from them. And they remain top of the table, and they also remain unbeaten. They have yet to lose a single game in the league this year. In fact, they've won every single game except for one, which was a draw. Xabi Alonso looks to be one of the best managers in Europe, despite being such a brand new manager, essentially. Elsewhere in Germany, we also saw Stuttgart, who have been one of the most surprising teams in Europe this year. They blew away Union Berlin 3-0. Very good results there, and Guirassy scored yet again to continue this insane run of form for him. He is now sitting on 14 goals in the league this year. And then Bayern Munich went up against Mainz in a game that probably should not have been this close at times. It ended up being a 3-1 win for Bayern on paper, a very comfortable win, but there was at times where it looked a little close here. Another goal from Harry Kane, and as well as goals from Kingsley Coman and Leon Goretzka. And if you look at the table, as I said before, Bayer Leverkusen are top of the table still. Stuttgart is only 1 point behind them. And then Bayern is actually in third. Now, of course, you would expect that as the season goes by, Bayern would eclipse these other two teams and top the table. But, I mean, you never know. Maybe this Harry Kane trophyless curse actually has some credence to it. Anyway, on to the last of Europe's top 5 leagues. We have Ligue 1 in France, and Nice on Saturday played Marseille in their home stadium, and they were able to win 1-0 over Marseille. It was a very late goal, but Marseille has been having a very up and down season. They've played really well at times, but they just have not been able to have that winning edge, and this match proves that here as they came away with a loss there. PSG beat Strasbourg in the other game on that Saturday, though. They won 3-0. Goal from Mbappe and then a goal from Soler in the first half kind of put the match out of reach for Strasbourg, and then Fabian Ruiz scored a third late in the match to just solidify the win there. Now on Sunday, there was an interesting match here. Monaco went up against Metz, and they actually went behind. But 2 goals from Alexander Golovin, the really slick attacking Russian attacking midfielder. He had a really good game, and it's good to see him playing well because, you know, he flopped in his first few seasons, and he had injuries and stuff, but he's a very talented player, and it's good to see him finally shine through with that talent. Monaco has actually been having quietly a very good season, unexpectedly so. I did not expect them to be playing this well, considering the chaos it looked like they were going to have at the beginning of the season. A team that is actually in utter chaos is Lyon, though. They lost to Clermont, another team that is fighting for relegation in Ligue 1, and they beat Lyon 2-1, and now Lyon sits 18th in the table with 0 wins to their name. They are statistically the worst team in France this year. They sit bottom of the table. Every team has won at least one match except for them. They have 3 draws and 6 losses with a negative 11 goal difference. Lyon is in utter freefall, and they are one of the biggest teams in France. You can probably argue that historically they are the biggest team in France, and if things don't change fast, they run the risk of being relegated, which would be absolutely insane. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what all of your thoughts were this weekend. There was a lot to talk about. There was a lot of really good games there. Which do you think was the most exciting game? How did your team do if you support any of the teams in Europe's top 5 leagues? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video with a friend. But anyway, guys, my name is Brandon, and I hope you guys have a nice rest of your night.